Now let's take the whole process from beginning to end, starting from the moment we bring it into the camera. So here we are in the CS3 Bridge, and we're going to go ahead and get the images from the camera. Go into the File menu, choose Get Photos from Camera, and it brings up this little camera dialog box here, the Photo Downloader dialog. Click on Advanced Dialog so you actually see the photos that you're about to download. That kind of makes it a little more helpful. Let's just kind of start from top to bottom here. First, over here on this side, anything that you see a checkbox beside is going to be imported. So if you see a photo that's got, you've accidentally shot a photo of your foot or something, if you uncheck it, it won't come in. So, and there's little shortcuts down here to uncheck them all or check them all. So if that helps you out to make it, choice quick. So if you only wanted 2 images, you don't want to one by one uncheck every single one, right? One by one. So what you would do instead is say uncheck all, and then say I only want these 2 images. So just kind of a little handy thing, but in this case, we're going to import everything. All right. So you're allowed to create subfolders. You choose up here which folder you want it to do, and then you can put it in subfolders by date, or you can just give it a custom name. So you could call them, sunglasses 2. You can also choose to rename the files at this point. If you feel that _DSC0221 is a very descriptive name, then I'd leave it like it is. But actually, that's a pretty lame thing if you have to try to find these later. So I would actually give these a name and call them sunglasses catalog. And then it's going to automatically name it _0001 and start automatically counting from there up. All right. You can also choose to preserve the current file name in XMP. What that means is it'll keep that old DCS DSC _DSC00 whatever it was. It'll embed that into the XMP metadata for the file. So you will have a track of what this original name, these names here were, just in case you should ever want them. And I can't imagine that you would. But hey, all right. The advanced options aren't really that advanced. Open Adobe Bridge when you're done. I don't know if that's really an advanced option. All right. Convert to DNG. If you are a paranoid photographer, and you know who you are, then you could click on Convert to DNG, and it will convert those to an open format that Adobe has created. This would take a whole segment by itself to talk about what DNG is, but it's so that in the future, if like people like Canon and Nikon and Olympus and some of these companies that make proprietary RAW formats stop supporting those formats, that you'll be able to use Adobe's open format to open them. For more on that, go to adobe.com. I think it's /DNG, or just click and search for DNG, and they'll tell you more than you'd ever want to know about DNG, but you get to choose if you want it converted to DNG or not. The next one is very important. Save copies to. I recommend saving a copy of everything that you import to a separate hard drive. So basically, connect another hard drive, choose another hard drive, and so one copy goes onto your computer, and a second copy goes into your into your backup hard drive automatically. So 2 copies are made. Well, the advantage of this, by the way, is there's multiple advantages, but of course, the number 1 is you're backing up your negatives. But number 2 is because you now have one version on an external drive and one version on your computer, the one on your computer is kind of like your mess around with version. You can mess around with them, delete them, make a mistake, because you always have a backup copy someplace else. So I always recommend to save a copy to another location for certain. Now, where it says apply metadata, if by default it has you applying nothing, it's just going to bring them in. But if you'd like to have it go ahead and put in your name, so who owns these, and your copyright information, copyright 2008, Scott Kelby, it'll just go ahead, whoops. Oh, let's spell my name right. There we go. It's lovely, isn't it? Okay, it'll embed my name and my copyright information. Let's add a little bit more. All rights, reserved, whatever you want to put in there. It'll embed that information into each and every file, whether they're a JPEG or a RAW or a TIFF. When you click the Get Photos button, it's going to bring those photos into, and you'll see, if you look in this dialog box here, you can see it actually says creating backup, copying file, and creating backup copy, copying file, and creating backup copy. So it makes a backup copy for you automatically while it's doing it. And it gives you kind of an idea of how far along we are by looking at the status bar. we are 15% along, and it's going to take about just a minute or so to import all of these. Once we do get them imported, we're going to do just a couple of minor things to them here in the bridge, and we're going to move on. Now, that being said, for those of you who know me and have either been to one of my tours or something, know that I'm not a tremendous fan of the bridge, and maybe that's why we're not spending so much time on it in here, because if you are a photographer, I strongly recommend for the managing of your images and things, use Adobe Lightroom. Adobe Lightroom is not just a replacement for the bridge, although it does replace the bridge, but it replaces the bridge, and it has a copy of Camera Raw in it. So everything that you learned from the Camera Raw section of this class can be applied directly and immediately to using Lightroom, because Lightroom has it built in. But Lightroom has so much more than that. It does phenomenal websites, and it's incredible for printing and a whole bunch more. And there are classes here. There are classes and DVDs you can get from people like Katrine Eisman and Matt Kloskowski, and you can also watch Matt's Lightroom Killer Tips to learn a lot more about Lightroom, or you can just go to adobe.com and check it out there. All right. That being said, we're almost done. We're 72% completed here, and in just a moment, it's going to load those photos into the bridge for us, and I'm talking slow to take up time, because time is of the essence. We're 83%. And it's where I'm at today. It's 61 degrees under blue skies. Yes, I'm stalling, but we only have 11% more of stalling to do. Oh, it's almost there. But you see a little preview over here. See a preview. I had to tell you that because you couldn't tell on your own, right? No, that's called professional stalling. All right, we're almost done. 2% more. One more. Yay. Okay. So it opens a new window, and here are the images, and boy, you're thinking this looks familiar. Now, while we're here and before we go on to the next segment, I do want to tell you this. There is a preview window over here, right? So you click on an image, and it shows you a preview over there that is slightly bigger than where you are. Now, of course, if your thumbnails are very small, then I guess it's a lot bigger. You can actually change the size of that. You can drag it down to make it bigger, but it doesn't go much wider. All right. And it does display the metadata of your image. The very top part here kind of gives you an idea of what your metadata look like on the LCD of your camera. It shows that this was taken at f4 at 1/20th of a second, 100 ISO. Shows that the white balance was set to flash and what the matrix metering was set at, blah, blah, blah. It also gives you all kinds of embedded detail over here, and you'll have to make this a little larger by dragging this panel out. You can see then that I shot this in manual mode. I was using a 200 millimeter focal length lens, and the equivalent what it would be in a 35 millimeter lens. I was actually shooting a 70 to 200 lens, but I was out at 200 millimeter. And the exposure looks like f2.8, and it goes on to tell you all these things that you probably don't really care about. If we go down here, let's see if we can get to where some of the other information is. The IPTC core information is where it embeds that copyright. Remember that copyright information? It embeds it right there. Any one of these fields that you see a little pencil by or a pen means that you could write something into that. So if you wanted to add more information into here, so if you wanted to add your city and your website and things like that, all you'd have to do is click on the field. So if you wanted to put your website, you just click it right there and put I'd put the whole thing, http://www.scottkelby.com, and then just move on to another field, and that information is embedded in there. So that's some of the metadata. If you wanted to add keywords to your images here, so you can, let's go ahead and apply that. You can go ahead and add keywords. So if there were certain, and keywords are simply search terms. So if you wanted to add search terms, so you might want to add the search term sunglasses. There's a little plus sign down here. It just adds sunglasses, and now you can have that embedded into every single photo that you have selected. Let's see where it went. There it is down here at the bottom. So you can have it embedded into different photos. You can select multiple photos and have it embedded that way if you want to embed it onto them. So now they all have that keyword embedded into them. That's not really a terrific keyword because they all happen to be named sunglasses. So you might want to come up with something a little more clever than that, like maybe shades. So that way, if one day you're going, oh yeah, I think the people in those are all wearing shades, that's a term that you might search for, that would be a more reasonable term to use. Now, what's nice about this is when you assign keywords to images, over here you have this little area called the filter, and the filter lets you basically jump right to what you want. So it's showing you that inside this particular one, there is one DCS folder, there are one JPEG image, and there's 64 camera raw images. And 4 of these are tagged with the keyword shades. 5 of them are tagged with the keyword sunglasses. Okay, so you can see how the filters work. It helps you get to the images that you want fairly quickly. The main reason I wanted to come in here was I hate the default layout. I wanted to show you I hate the default layout. The default layout of this basically has this tiny preview window and everything's kind of in the middle. Unless you're going to do a lot of filtering and navigating and stuff, I recommend that you use some of the other ones. One of the ones I like the best is a built-in workspace because they've already built in these specific workspaces. And one of them I like is called Light Table. And basically it hides all the junk and basically puts your images kind of front and center. Now, if you're wondering whatever happened to all the other stuff, where's the other images? Well, if you go back to the reset the default workspaces, you'll see that I have the filters turned on over here. I have some of these filters that I asked for, so we're being filtered by those things. So if you're all of a sudden you're missing a bunch of images, go back to your filter panel because chances are something's messed up there. All right. So let's go here to Workspace and we'll look at Light Table now and see now it's just basically focusing just on the images and not that we don't really need this, by the way. Let's get rid of that. Let's delete it. Okay. So now we can zip through our images just like this pretty quickly. You can change the size. And there's little shortcuts over here, by the way, for different layouts. You can use these. Here's a horizontal film strip, which works well if you're working with horizontal images. It still leaves your filters and stuff available. And you can click over here and get a detail view. The one that I happen to like, if you click on these, you can actually choose the one you like. I like the vertical film strip. I think that's actually the best one because look how large it makes your images this way, right? And if you wind up with a horizontal image, I only have a single horizontal image here, but they become even bigger. So here's what I do to create my own custom workspace that I like. I get it set where I like it. So let me just expand this down a little bit. Get it set where I like it. And then I actually just drag this over. You can actually double click and hide that other stuff. So basically now you're focused, and you can use the up and down arrow keys on your keyboard to let you have a really nice view of the images just like that. So it's just kind of a nice way. And if an image shows up and it's looking kind of, it was just because it was drawing the thumbnail. It's drawing the higher resolution thumbnail so you can actually see it. So that's what this stuff is. And if you find a layout you like, and you go, you know what, this layout works for me pretty well. Go into the window menu, go into Workspace, and choose Save Workspace, and give it a name. You can call it Scott's Workspace if your name is Scott. If your name is something else, I might call it something else. But actually, Scott's Workspace really works pretty well for everything. I'm kidding. If you want to get rid of Workspace, just choose Delete Workspace, and you can always get back to your default, no problem, by choosing Reset Default Workspace, or just choosing the default workspace from right here. All right, so now that we've got some images in here, in the next segment, we're going to start taking you through the process. But that's the workflow stuff that I would do in the bridge, which is pretty minimal, really. Just basically assigning a few keywords, and from here on out, we're going to be working in Camera Raw and then onto Photoshop.